Well, here are again in this beautiful day, the day of the new Bloodlines to Death Diary. Hello everyone, I'm Xeno again in the chantry again. Yes, your favorite Shamir, it's me, I'm back. And like I said, today we are reading another new Bloodlines to Death Diary number 19. This time about hunting and feeding. So a very important things for a vampire to do if they wish to survive. This will be an interesting one. So let's jump right into it. Welcome, kindred, to this Bloodlines to Death Diary from the team at the Chinese Room. Tonight's diary is about hunting and feeding, both in combat scenarios and the more social setting of Seattle. Feeding is at the heart of the game loop and fantasy of being a vampire. So if you faint at the sight of blood, read no further. I mean, if you have problems with blood, then why are you here? This whole vampire thing is about blood here, so I mean, you still can be interested in that. But let's continue. So this was written by the project creative director Alex Skidmore, so a gentleman we all know very well. Next. Feeding is a really important part of the vampire fantasy, like I said. And so from a gameplay perspective, we were set on making it a fundamental part of the player's actions and strategies. You'll be doing a lot of it. Fire's a little and often kinda drinker that helps keep the beast in check. Plus, it's your main source of healing and critical to using your powerful discipline abilities. A lot of incentive for us to make it feel good. Your main concern will be your surroundings. Getting spotted feeding on the streets is a blatant masquerade violation, so masquerade is in the game. It's in the title also, but obviously the mechanic of the masquerade is present. And more violent types won't be content to let you feed on their friends unscathed. So you want to isolate your targets. A strategic approach to feeding, I like it. Well, like a vampire. Vampires are an opportunistic kind of predator, to be honest. Unless you're a Sabbat, then you're just crazy. Feeding in the swing of combat is risky, but not impossible. If you're mindful of which direction you start a feed from, for example, your victim can help soak up a lot of gunfire for you. Good. So we can use our enemies as meat shields. And that's great. One aspect that was really challenging was presentation. From a first-person perspective, feeding in first person doesn't really show you much at best and looks silly at worst. Well, it looked fine in the Vampire the Masquerade Justice, but it was a VR game, so different thing. But a simple cut in and out of third person can also be disorienting and feels a bit disconnected, like in the first Bloodlines, where when you start feeding, this whole animation starts when the screen starts to spin and you see your character drinking from your victim. Everything goes dark and the blood bar is visible. So that makes sense. It was a little distracting at times, especially during combat. So, what we settled on uses a bit of both. with some basic cinematic action cutting techniques to maintain continuity of motion and enough first-person action at the end to get you settled in your new move. Good, good. It's subtle, but I think it goes a long way in helping the flow of the game in hectic situations. That's the right move, I think, to make in this situation. Senior game designer Max Bottomley, also someone we all know from the previous Dev Diaries. Here we have some screenshots. As a vampire, Fire, so our protagonist, has access to senses that are much more powerful than that of a human. Makes sense. Whilst exploring Seattle, Fire will be able to tap into these heightened senses. You see what they did there? For those who don't know, first level of Auspex discipline is called heightened senses. And it's, well, heightens your senses, smell, hearing, vision. And using it as a default thing, like the Falcon vision kind of from Assassin's Creed or the Witcher's medallion thing, it makes sense. It makes sense, really. Because in first Bloodlines, Auspex was cool, but not really that useful. And here, making it a just to heighten your senses, because by default, vampires also have heightened senses. They don't need to use the discipline, but the discipline pushes it even further. So I think making it that way really, it's a really good move. Enhancing her ability to smell, see, and hear her enemies, like I said. And they use her because in Dev Diaries they use the female Fire as a default example. Of course, we can customize our gender. We can be male, female, yeah. By concentrating on these senses, Fire will detect the beating hearts of of nearby prey, even through walls, allowing her to choose just the right strategy to pounce on them. So, like I said, opportunistic feeding. You need to plan how you approach this situation when you sneak up, when you distract someone to feed, regain health. So a strategy element to this whole vampire bloody soup. When it came to visualizing this, we wanted our concepts to reflect the vampiric nature of homing in on your next meal, sensing and smelling blood through the air. We wanted Fire to feel like a predator stalking her enemies using all her vampiric gifts. To do this, we wanted to tap into a striking art style for this part of the gameplay, something that highlighted Fire's vampiric lust for blood while also being very clear for the player experience. So like we can see here, the characters, enemies, victims maybe are highlighted. Here, everything else is blurred. It makes sense because very often predators in nature even get sort of a tunnel vision when chasing or stalking their prey. So that makes sense. Some are red, others are not. So I assume the red ones are like ghouls, maybe, or other kindred, or even other like enemies, and the blue, pale blue, whitish are just, bystanders. That's what I assume, at least right now. Art by Jordan Grimmer. A concept of heightened senses exploring how to differentiate between humans. So maybe I'm right. Maybe they are not humans, the red ones. Oh, this is interesting. As you can see from the concept art, once we tap into our heightened senses, we enter a visually different vision of our current environment. One where enemies stand out brightly, their blood pumping. Fire can sniff out these potential dangers and then plan accordingly her plan of action. We wanted the visual language of enemies to really pop out from the drained background in this mode. So I was right about the focusing on the target. Fire is hyper focusing on her prey. Yeah. So we wanted enemies to burn brightly in the world, their blood shimmering even through walls. So I was probably right. These reddish guys are our enemies. And here we see how the feeding will maybe look like. Can I enlarge this? Let's read it first. Once we get up close and personal, that's when we can feed. We wanted the feeding to feel like an intimate experience between you and the victim. Biting someone's throat will always give you a sudden rush of power. Because, even in the TTRPG, feeding is a very intimate act for a vampire, even in the stereotypical vampire fashion. The Lugosi Dracula, when he fed in the movies, it was very sensual. And in VTM, Vampire the Masquerade Tabletop, both the vampire and their victim get immense pleasure from feeding. Of course, the victim can die. And vampire can also be Hecata, and then the host will die out of pain, most likely. But, this Hecata. Silly them. But yeah. Feeding is a very pleasurable, intimate thing. Unless you Sabbat again. But yeah. So that makes sense. Drinking blood is a way to restore your powers, and by doing so will be an active experience for the player. We wanted the action of feeding to reflect the visceral nature of stealing life from a beating heart, taking life from a host and transferring it to the player. Above, we explored a few ways we could show this through the reaction to Fire's vision as the blood enters her system. This level of exploration, creating many different ideas and iterations, is key when we're trying to find something that could work for a future like this. Sorry. So yeah, can I enlarge this? I can. So we see here. So it's when fire actually bites someone, so drawing blood. And it gets a little crazy because for vampires, like I said, drinking blood is like doing drugs, doing something incredibly pleasurable, even having an orgasm sometimes. Smiling Jack actually explained it very well in the first Bloodlines game. He said that, blood is your new rack of lamp, your new champagne, your new cocaine. So, yeah, for vampires, that's it. I really like the third option, this one right here. It's so, like, bloody. I love it. This one, yeah, this is a good thing for a wallpaper. I want this image, please, and enlarge it for me. Give me higher resolution version. We'll make it on my desktop. And we continue. So this was written by senior concept artist Jordan Grimmer and lead concept artist Michael Ukera. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. I'm really sorry. And here we have like the same thing. No, it's the biting itself. So we have a guy, and we bite, and this looks like this. Okay, makes sense. His veins are showing because the pumping in us. You can see through the heightened senses his vasculatory system. Here, arteries, veins. Very cool. I love details like this. Uh, I love when developers show things like this. It really gives you the insight into the creative process. It's really cool. Get up close and personal with your victim by this wonderful person. Yes. And now we move to the next section. Blood resonance events. This will be cool. So yeah. Not only is Seattle brought to life with people going about their own business, including NPCs reacting to the player, perhaps even running away in terror. It's also a place where the player can hunt. So, open areas. I like it. As you move around the city, you'll be able to track and hunt NPCs that have the potential to become fully resonated with a specific type of blood to feed on. So I explained this in the previous diary video overview, but I will explain it again. So blood resonance is like a emotional taste of blood. If someone has a very strong emotion, they're angry, sad, horny, depressed, whatever, then their blood will be impacted. This emotion will leave their mark on the blood, and the blood will taste differently, and it will give the vampire who drinks it different perks, different bonuses. It's a mechanic in V5, Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. There, when you drink from someone, the storyteller can, you see a very angry person, then the vampire drinks from that person, and they get like a temporary additional dot of potence, a level of potence. And also, Film Blood Alchemy relies heavily on the concept of blood resonance for the Film Blood alchemical formulas. So that's what the blood resonance is. So I assume that in Bloodlines 2, blood resonance will give fire some perks, some temporary power-ups, perhaps. Track these NPCs down using heightened senses and knowledge of the city. Then use charm, fear, or anger to convince and bend them to your will. So that's hunting. Very early on, we wanted these events to feel like something players would want to go and investigate. As they pop up around the city, I like to refer to these events as vampire candy for players to track, follow, and feed on. Social feeding is a key part of the player's time in our Seattle and revolves around influencing the NPCs in certain ways. Maybe you will stumble upon someone angry at the ATM, that the ATM has stolen their card, and you can take that anger and feed on it and get something from it. Maybe someone's scared after missing the last bus home, and chasing them down a dark alley will tip them into terror and give you the social feed you're craving. So by assuming by this part here, we could, in the Seattle area, or even in combat perhaps, in the missions, force someone to feel a certain way. So we can, like in Arkham, like in Batman Arkham games, where Batman can make his enemies freak out, terrorize them. Oh, you see a body here, oh, someone's doing something there, something broke there. So we could also influence people in this way to give them this specific resonance we want. So maybe flirting with people, seducing them, making them angrier, or terrifying them. That's just my assumption, but that would be a really cool mechanic. And, well, judging by this part here again, it's possible I'm right. Again, because I'm a Shamir and I'm always right. Unless Regents says otherwise, but yeah. It's been great working on a system where the NPCs display very raw emotion, letting the player really lean into the vampire fantasy, allowing them to interact with the denizens of Seattle in a number of different ways. You can use abilities, conversations, or just plain terrify them, then reap the rewards with a careful fit. So again, it proves my theory, but, well, we'll see. We wanted to give players the freedom to hunt the way they want, but it was also important that players need to be mindful of how and where they fit to avoid breaking the masquerade. So again, we have masquerade, don't break it. Social feeding is a slower process, so it's best to lure victims to secluded areas. Makes sense, like in the first Bloodlines. Or in Swansong. Or Redemption. Or literally every other Vampire the Masquerade game. Or in Vampire also. It's not a Vampire the Masquerade game, but also a very cool vampire game. Explaining to animators that I want an animation of someone cowering like a shocked actor from the 1950s horror movie, then watching those animations come to life. Chef's kiss. It's been really great to just sit and think, wouldn't it be great if fire is approached by a mugger and threatened, only to have them turn and flee in fear once they realize what fire is. I'm really looking forward to seeing how players choose to tackle the hunt and feed within the city area itself. Project lead game designer Gavin Hood. Don't miss the next DD, Dev Diary, where we sink our teeth deeper into the intricacies of blood resonance. So, as we can see here, the next Dev Diary, October 23rd, is all about blood resonance. So maybe my theory about making people feel certain way and creating a certain resonance is right. That's 2 weeks from now. And what's next? After that, we have Dev Diary 21, Fashion Matters. So we already talked about fashion in Bloodlines 2. We already have a lot of informations that fire can have a lot of outfits. Some were shown in the concept art, some were shown in renders. And in gameplay, we also saw one in action. Two, actually. In a way, in the other trailer, the previous one. But yeah, and your fashion choice will also impact your social interactions with certain NPCs. If you're not dressed appropriately for a club, bar, or a business meeting, then NPCs will react differently. And then Dev Diary 22 to be announced November 20th. This was changed, actually, I know, because I read this article originally like a second after it got released, and I have a saved image of what this section looked like. And this Dev Diary 22 on November 20th was to be about character customization. But for those who complain about not having a character customization, we will have dev diary about character customization, your gender, face, hair, whatever. But it was removed, and I'm giving you right now a screenshot of what Miss Debbie said on Bloodlines to Discord, official Bloodlines to Discord, that this dev diary was moved forward in time, the character customization dev diary, to make place on November 20th for something really, really important, like you can see in the picture I present to you right now. So, if this is important, then okay, but we still know that character customization dev diary is coming in the future, perhaps the next one after the 22. So, dev diary 23 maybe character customization. We'll see. But for now, we wait for them to announce what the 22 will be. Maybe they will announce it in 2 weeks for the Blood Resonance dev diary. But for now, that's it for this dev diary. Very cool, very insightful. Social feedings, combat feedings, masquerade mechanics, resonance, and this animation. I still love this bloody red image. So yeah, let me know in the comments what do you guys think about this dev diary. I'm very happy with it. And well, yeah, see you next time in 2 weeks, perhaps. So see ya.